Imagine a bucket full of prime young potatoes, grown almost effortlessly. Sounds like every gardener's dream, doesn't it? The internet is buzzing with tips on how to grow a bountiful potato harvest in an ordinary bag. They say it's simple, clean, and incredibly efficient. But what's truly more effective? The good old garden bed, tested by generations of our grandparents, or this newfangled method of growing potatoes in bags? Today, we're setting up a real harvest showdown. We planted the same amount of potatoes in both a garden bed and a bag, cared for them under identical conditions, and now we're ready to see the results. And the outcome, believe me, will surprise you. Let's figure out where this idea of growing in bags even came from. Potato cultivation in bags has become a real hit for urban gardening and for those with limited garden space. The advantages seem obvious. No need to dig up the soil, fewer weeds, and harvesting promises to be easy and quick. On the other hand, we have the classic garden bed. It offers reliability, predictability, and frankly, centuries of tradition. It's a method that definitely works, but it requires more space and physical effort. So in one corner of the ring, we have innovation and convenience. In the other, tradition and time-tested effectiveness. Who will win? All right, let the battle begin. Round 1, prepping the ground. Here we'll compare how much effort and time it takes right from the get-go. And believe me, the difference is massive. Let's start with our modern contender, potatoes in a bag. What did we need? First off, the bag itself. We opted for a special heavy-duty one, but a regular sugar or flour sack would work just fine. The main thing is that it needs to be breathable and allow excess moisture to drain. Secondly, the soil. And this arguably is the biggest advantage. We simply bought a few bags of ready-to-use, nutrient-rich potting soil for vegetables. No mess, no heavy lifting. The entire preparation process took no more than 10 minutes, tops. We put a bit of drainage material at the bottom to prevent root rot, then filled the bag about a third of the way with soil. That's it. Our plot was ready for planting. No sweat, no aching back. Now, let's turn to the veteran of the garden, the classic garden bed. And this is where the real work begins. First, you need to pick a sunny spot. Then, arm yourself with a shovel or a pitchfork. We had to put in some serious effort digging up the designated area. We had to break up all the clumps and remove weed roots. This alone took about an hour of pure physical labour. But that's not all. The soil in our plot isn't ideal, so we added a bucket of compost and some ash to the bed. All of this needed to be thoroughly mixed into the soil. In total, preparing the garden bed took us half a day and a significant amount of effort. So, to recap round 1, in terms of ease and speed of preparation, the bag method wins by a huge margin. It's the ideal option for those who don't want to or can't do heavy digging. But does that mean it will win in the end? Don't jump to conclusions just yet. The most interesting part is still to come. Round 2, growing season care. Preparing the planting site is just the beginning. The real work of nurturing your future harvest starts when the first shoots emerge from the soil. And here again, our 2 methods yielded strikingly different results. Let's take a look at our potato bag. The primary aspect of care here is watering. The soil in the confined space of the bag, especially one that breathes so well, dries out much faster than soil in an open garden bed. On hot, sunny days, we found ourselves watering the potatoes in the bag almost every single day. It's crucial to remember this, otherwise your plants will simply wither and die. But the actual process is incredibly simple. Just grab a watering can, fill it up, and you're good to go. The second key task is hilling. And this is where the bag method once again proves its convenience. As the stems grew, we simply kept adding fresh, nutrient-rich soil to the bag. No hose, no laborious digging or tilling. You just grab a bag of soil and top it off until the bag is almost completely full. This encourages the formation of new tubers all along the stem. Now what about our traditional garden plot? Here, watering was a bit more straightforward. The ground naturally retains moisture longer, so we watered less often, roughly once every few days. But when we did, we watered deeply. But hilling, that's a whole different story. It's a full-on garden workout. You have to carefully mound soil around the base of the plants using a hoe, being careful not to damage the roots or stems. This needs to be done multiple times throughout the growing season. And let's not forget about weeds. Weeds appear with frustrating regularity in the garden bed, and they need to be constantly pulled to prevent them from stealing vital nutrients from the potato plants. So, after this second round, it's another draw, but with a clear nod to convenience. The bag requires more frequent watering, but its overall care is much simpler and tidier. The garden bed requires less attention to moisture, but demands more physical effort for hilling and weeding. But all of this is merely a warm-up for the grand finale. Up next, the harvest. And here it is, the moment of truth. The most anticipated, the most spectacular round of our showdown. Round 3, the harvest. This is where we truly discover if all our efforts were worthwhile and witness the tangible outcome. Let's begin with our champion of convenience, the potato grown in a bag. The harvesting process here felt more like a magic trick than actual gardening. No shovels, no pitchforks, no mud-stained clothes. We simply took our bag, carried it over to a pre-laid tarp, and carefully tipped it over. That's it. We just emptied out its entire contents. Before us, on the tarp, lay a mound of loose soil and perfectly clean, uniform tubers, each one looking hand-picked. Not a single cut, not a single scratch from any tool. The entire process took barely 2 minutes and was incredibly satisfying. It was astonishingly simple and visually impressive. Now, let's move on to our classic garden bed. Here, everything was, shall we say, more traditional and labour-intensive. Armed with a pitchfork, we began carefully digging up our harvest, plant by plant. It was a true treasure hunt, demanding skill and physical exertion. We had to push the fork deep into the soil, trying not to pierce the tubers, turn over heavy clods of earth, and then manually pick out the potatoes. And despite our best efforts, some losses were, regrettably, unavoidable. Several excellent large potatoes inevitably fell victim to the sharp tines of the pitchfork. Of course, the entire harvest was covered in dirt and required extensive washing afterward. So, in this round, based on ease, speed, and tuber preservation, the grow bag claims an undeniable knockout victory. But the burning question still remains. Which method produced a greater yield by weight? Our battle is nearing its grand finale. Drumroll, please. We've harvested and weighed the yield from both of our experimental plots. Every single potato was carefully cleaned and counted, and by total weight, the traditional garden bed won by a narrow margin. That's right, the classic method yielded a bit more potato in kilograms. You might think the battle was decided right there. But here's where it gets interesting. That wasn't the whole story. The real twist was hidden in the details. The potatoes from the bag were perfectly clean, smooth, and remarkably uniform in size. We just poured them out and they were ready to go. Not a single damaged tuber, no cuts from a spade. Harvesting took literally 2 minutes. In the garden bed, however, we unfortunately damaged several excellent potatoes with our digging forks. Furthermore, we found traces of wireworms on the tubers from the garden bed. In the bag, thanks to the isolated soil, there were absolutely no pests at all. So, in terms of harvest quality, cleanliness, and tuber preservation, the bag method was the undisputed champion. So who truly won this potato battle? The answer isn't so simple. If your main goal is to get the maximum amount of potatoes per square metre, and you're not afraid of physical labour and pest control, then the classic garden bed is your go-to. But if you value your time and effort and want a perfectly clean, healthy harvest without extra hassle, then growing potatoes in a bag is your absolute winner. It's the ideal method for beginners and for anyone who wants fresh potatoes without the backache. Thanks for sticking with us through this potato showdown. If you enjoyed our little investigation and learned something new, please support our channel with a like and a subscription. We'd really appreciate it. And now, a question for you. Which potato growing method do you use? And what results do you get? Share your experience in the comments below. Let's discuss.